We're happy to be speaking about Argentina this week. You'll learn some interesting facts and improve your English. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
With nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we hope to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
If you are a new listener to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. And if you've come back as a long-time AIRC294, you're very, very welcome. What's first this week, Reza?
First, we got a voice message, and appropriately, it's from Marcela from Argentina.
Hi, Craig. Hi, Reza. This is Marcela from Argentina. Remember me? Well, I'd like you to speak about my country in some episodes. Once I heard you speaking like an Argentinian. It was really funny. Nowadays, we are going through a new economic crisis due to years of wrong policies and bad government. In Europe, for example, prices were the same every time we have gone. Here, prices rise once or twice a month. On the other hand, we have friendly people, nice weather, beautiful landscapes with lakes, glaciers, waterfalls, and mountains, some of them plenty of colors. Buenos Aires, the capital, is a very big and cultural city. We drink mate. I know it's rather peculiar, but our meat and wines are well known, as well as tango. And of course, we've got dulce de leche and delicious alfajores. They are made with two very soft cookies, and between them a thick layer of dulce de leche, all based in chocolate. If I were you, I would taste them, and I'm sure you'll become alfaholics like us. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much for your lovely message, Marcela. It was wonderful to hear from you.
Yes, Marcela, and I'm really surprised that you were impressed many episodes ago by our terrible attempt at Argentine accents. Yeah, you liked that. Wow. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Marcela. You see, I told you it's terrible. How could anybody be impressed by that? Yo no tengo idea cómo hacer el acento argentino. I've become Italian, I think, accidentally. Sorry about that.
Well, there are lots of Italians in Argentina, so I'm not even going to attempt an Argentinian accent, but I am an alfaholic. I do love alfajores. I think they are the best invention ever, but they need to be covered in chocolate, and they are delicious. The chocolate ones are definitely my favorites.
Craig, I always refer to you when it comes to matters of chocolate because Craig knows he's a chocoholic. That I can tell you for sure. He knows a thing or two about chocolate. Do all alfajores, is that what it's called? Alfajores have to be covered in chocolate? I'm pretty sure I've seen some which aren't covered in chocolate.
That's correct. You can get them covered in chocolate or not covered in chocolate. My particular favourites, though, are covered in dark chocolate, and my preferred brand is Havana. And I'm sure Marcela knows what I mean. And all our Argentinian listeners know about Havana alfajores.
And is it that thing maicena that they use to make over it? Is it corn flour they use? Maicena?
I'm not sure. I know there's dulce de leche inside, which makes it, for me, unbelievably sweet and delicious, but I'm not sure how they're made.
So maybe, Marcela, you could get back to us and clarify, do they or can they use maicena, corn flour, or is it just wheat flour? Or maybe both are accepted. Can you clarify that for us, please, Marcela?
We've also received an email from Leire Parraga, who is Venezuelan, and she's studying with our podcast on Spotify. Some of you don't know that you can also listen to us on Spotify. And Leire says, I love your comments about dulce de leche and Argentina. I live in Buenos Aires, and it's so true, all that you say. I would change that a little later, and I would say everything you say is so true. Yeah, everything you say is so true. She continues, thanks for such a good job. I don't have money to pay for a course of English, so I'm learning with you for free. And we think that's wonderful. That's why we do this podcast, so that everyone can improve their English. And thank you very much for listening over there in Buenos Aires.
Okay, Craig, shall we get down to some facts about Argentina?
Yes, let's look first at the geography a little bit. So Argentina has Chile to the west, and it's bordered by Bolivia, Paraguay to the north. It has Brazil to the northeast, and Uruguay and the South Atlantic Ocean to the east. So lots of countries border Argentina. And the Drake Passage, which I had to check because I hadn't heard that before, D-R-A-K-E, the Drake Passage is in the south, and that's where you have Cape Horn. It's in between the bottom of Chile and Argentina and Antarctica. So just south of the Falklands, Las Malvinas.
And I don't know much about Uruguay. I know we're talking about Argentina, but I do know one thing about Uruguay. Never, ever, ever confuse a Uruguayan for an Argentinian. And it's very easy to do.
Are the accents similar?
They're similar, but they would tell you not the same, of course.
Like a Canadian and an American?
In America, never confuse a Canadian for an American. If you call a Uruguayan an Argentinian, you've really put your foot in it. You're in big trouble now.
What does it mean to put your foot in it?
Meter la pata.
Okay.
You've said the wrong thing. And I wonder, is it the same for Argentinians if you accidentally call them Uruguayans? I don't know, but I know you got to be very careful about that. So when I hear an accent which I think is Argentinian, I don't jump the gun. It means I wait.
So you'd say something like, where are you from? And not, how long have you lived in Argentina?
Yeah, because it happened to me that I got a Uruguayan. Yeah. A Uruguayan that I thought was a very pretty young lady, actually. But after that, there was no chance of going anywhere with that.
So you really put your foot in it.
That was the end of my chances there. So let me know, Argentinians, is it the same for you? Would you be very offended to be called a Uruguayan? Let us know. I'd be interested to know about that.
Argentina is a really, really big country. It's the 8th largest country in the world, the 8th largest, number 8. And it has a population of 45 million, which is more or less the same as Spain. I think Spain has 46 million. So fewer people living in a much bigger space. Argentina is also the largest Spanish-speaking nation.
By geographical area, you mean, I guess, then?
Yes, geographically speaking.
Okay. So in other words, in Argentina, you've got more space than in Spain. So they got a lot of space in Argentina. And I imagine, above all, in Patagonia. Craig, have you been in Patagonia?
Yes, I was lucky enough to visit Argentina a few years ago, and I had the best lamb I have ever eaten in Patagonia. Patagonian lamb is absolutely delicious. So, and the countryside is beautiful. It's a lovely part of the world.
Speaking about other parts of Argentina, who hasn't heard of Buenos Aires? Very, very famous city. Mm-hmm. And of course, the capital of Argentina.
And the tallest mountain on the continent is Aconcagua, which is 6,962 meters. And I think it's one of the 6 peaks, is it? Or 5 peaks that mountaineers try to climb. Like there's Everest and 1 or 2 more in the Himalayas. And Aconcagua is one of those mountains that is a goal for mountain climbers to get to the summit of.
Well, when I think of Argentina, various stereotypical things come to mind. One of the first is football. The Argentina national football team, of course, has won the Football World Cup. Not once, but twice. And not many countries can say that. They won in 1978 and again in 1986.
One interesting fact that I did not know Buenos Aires, the capital, has more psychologists and psychiatrists than any other city in the world. 198 psychologists per 1,000 inhabitants. And 50% of those professionals are in Buenos Aires. So that really surprised me.
For some reason, I did know that, and I've known it for a long time. Don't ask me why, but I first heard that about 20 years ago. So it's not a new phenomenon. For many years, it seems that Argentinians have been keen on going to see psychologists and psychiatrists, and above all, probably psychoanalysts. Mm-hmm. So let us know, Argentinians who are listening. Are you a bit crazy? Have you got a lot of problems in your life? Or I'm only joking. But I'd be interested.
We've just lost all of our Argentinian listeners. You realise that, don't you? 37% of the Argentine population descend from Italy. And that's one thing I do remember from travelling there years ago. The variety of Italian food and really good coffee and lovely pizza and pasta that's inside Argentinian culture. So there's a very strong Italian presence in Argentina. 37% are of Italian descent. And it's the place with most Italians outside of Italy.
Yes, I've heard that Argentina is a country which has fantastic Italian restaurants. They say that some of the best Italian restaurants in the world are actually in Argentina.
Yeah.
Craig, I don't know if you paid much attention to the ladies, to the women when you were in Argentina, or were you more interested?
It's difficult not to because they are absolutely beautiful, absolutely charming and very attractive. In fact, 30% of Argentine women go through plastic surgery. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no. That has surprised me. So, in Argentina, women like to look good. They like to look their best, it seems.
They do, but sadly, Argentina has the second highest rate of anorexia in the world after Japan. So, Argentinian women are very, very conscious of their appearance, which sadly has some negative effects.
Maybe that's a common thing in all of South America. We've also done an episode about Brazil. For example, I know that Brazil has the second highest rate of plastic surgery per person in the world.
Yeah.
Only after the United States. And they're next door to Argentina. So maybe it's a thing which in Latin America is simply very popular.
Yeah, it's also very popular in Spain, of course.
Yeah. And Italy. And we mentioned the connection between Argentina and Italy as well. Yeah.
Just to remind listeners who may be interested in the Brazil episode, which number was that?
That was 262. So if you want to find out more about Brazil, go to English Podcast /262.
Argentina also has the highest consumption of red meat in the world. In fact, there are more cows than people. And I think in Australia there are more sheep than people.
Wow. And as Craig said earlier, they know what to do with that meat. He had the best lamb he's ever had in his life. And some of the best beef steaks I've ever had in my life have been in Argentinian restaurants here in Spain. Mm-hmm. I know that generally speaking, you're going to get good meat if you go to an Argentinian restaurant.
In fact, I've had the pleasure of meeting Argentinians during my life outside of Argentina, in Europe and other parts of the world, and the best people to have a barbecue with are Argentinians. They know how to cook meat. They know good cuts of meat. An Argentinian barbecue is a fantastic experience. Have you ever eaten with Argentinians outside of a restaurant?
No, I don't think I have. No, it's an experience I would like to have.
I'll have to introduce you to a couple of Argentinians in Valencia. Yerba mate is a drink that's very common in Argentina. It's the national drink, yerba mate. Have you tasted it?
I have. Only once or twice, and I liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
I think it's quite an acquired taste, something you acquire over time. For me, it wasn't really sweet enough. and I wasn't. I think it's something you need to drink often, but it's very common in Argentina to see people drinking yerba mate, which is drunk. It's a kind of tea, and it's made from dried leaves and twigs of a plant that I don't know if I can pronounce. Yex paraguariensis plant?
Yeah. You said twigs from that plant. What are twigs?
Twigs are, well, if a tree has branches, ramas, then the twigs are very, very, very small branches. So pieces of the plant that is not the leaf. So they take the leaves, they dry the leaves, and they also include some of the parts of the plant that also has taste, and they mix it together with hot water. It's very, very healthy. And it's drunk in a special container called a gourd, Gourd, and sipped with a metal straw. To sip is to take small amounts of the tea at a time, and you suck the tea through a metal straw. And the straw has a filter at the bottom, which keeps the pieces of leaves and the pieces of twigs out of your mouth. So it strains out the leaves and the twigs. To strain out is to stop those things getting into your mouth, to filter them.
I've heard that among friends or people who know each other, sometimes they share a mate. Did you see that in Argentina?
I did see that. We were on a tour, and the tour guide was constantly drinking mate, yerba mate from his gourd and sharing it with other people who were in the bus. And that's one time I tasted it. So yeah, it's very common to pass it around so different people drink it. It's a very communal, very social way of drinking tea.
Yeah. And you know how when you're young, normally your parents say to you, don't slurp. Slurp. S-L-U-R-P.
Don't slurp your tea, Reza.
Don't make that sound. Just don't make any sound. Don't slurp. Well, I wonder if you can verify this. I've heard, I've never been to Argentina, but people who have told me that it's considered good manners, the correct thing to do, to slurp the mate just before you pass it on to the next person.
I didn't notice that. No, it's possible, but I didn't pay attention. I didn't notice that.
That's what I've heard. So you can make a sound. In fact, you should, apparently. And there's a logic behind it. It's like when you've finished what you're going to drink and now you're going to pass it on, go slurp to make sure that nothing has fallen out of your mouth into the drink. So you go quickly to suck up anything that might have fallen from your mouth. So there's a kind of logic to it. You're supposed to slurp at the end before you pass on the mate. That's what I've heard.
Your mum wouldn't like that, would she?
My mum wouldn't like mate. It's not for her.
No, too much slurping.
So get back to me, Argentinians. Tell me if that's true. I'm just telling you secondhand, but you guys who live there, tell us, is that really true? I'd love to know.
As well as fantastic meat, Argentina also has wonderful pies. P-I-E-S, pies. Meat pies are famously tasty from Argentina. Empanadas or empanadillas.
Yes, whenever I go to an Argentinian restaurant, I nearly always ask for a pie. Yeah, because I know it's going to be good.
And the meat's going to be good. The filling inside is going to be good quality.
And as far as drink is concerned, wine. I like Argentinian wine. And they're the 5th largest producer of wine in the world. Yeah, I don't know about the white. I haven't seen that much. But I do know the red wine. And it's very nice. A nice Malbec is nice. A typical grape from Argentina. Maybe from the Mendoza area. Oh, now you're talking. Malbec from Mendoza. Nice wine.
Very common in Europe, Argentinian wine, yeah.
And how could anyone resist a dulce de leche?
A dulce de leche.
Dulce de leche,
Ay,
che.
dulce de leche.
Yo, me encanta el dulce de leche.
It goes well with everything.
Hi, Reze. Hi, Craig. I'm Florencia from Argentina. I have been listening your podcast for almost 3 months. I'm really grateful with you because this became one of my favorite tools to improve my English. At the beginning, I thought that would be useful for listening, but actually I'm learning a lot about grammar. I really enjoy your readings advice, and now I'm training my speaking, so it's very complete. I enjoy a lot the topics that you choose for your podcast, especially the one that talk about the language. Now I'm living in Spain, but I was born in the south of Argentina. I spent my upbringing in Patagonia, so that's very, 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 very nice and beautiful place. So if you are going to do a podcast about Argentina, don't forget to speak about Patagonia because Argentina is a very large country and Patagonia is a place plenty of mountains and lakes, so it's very beautiful. Well, bye bye, guys.
So, who are some famous Argentinians? There's Ernesto Che Guevara, who was born in Rosario, the famous revolutionary who went on to fight in Cuba.
Yes, he's associated above all with Cuba, isn't he? But he was Argentinian.
That's right.
Lionel Messi, of course. Anybody who knows anything about football will know that he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, footballer in the world. Well, officially, right now, he is the greatest because he's just won the competition for this year, as he did last year as well. So
Probably the year before.
no, he didn't actually. Yeah,
Okay, that was Ronaldo, was it?
yeah, but probably the year before that. So I think he's won the best footballer award 6 or 7 times. So he's definitely one of the best in all history of football, I would say.
Argentina, of course, produced some fantastic footballers over the years. Diego Maradona, of course, comes to mind. I saw him play in '78 when Argentina won the cup, and he was absolutely amazing. So very well remembered by Argentinians all over the world.
And when you saw him play, Craig, was it just his pure skill that won the day, or would you say the hand of God, Mano de Dios, helped him a little bit?
Well, the hand of God may have helped with that particular game, but not taking anything away from his skill. He was amazing. He was such an exciting footballer to watch, and so is Messi. I love watching Messi.
Yeah. Let's pass on quickly from that. Vamos a pasar página de la mano de Dios, that famous Argentina-England match.
Speaking of God,
the Pope, no less, God's number one appointee, that means responsable on earth, Pope Francis, also known as Jorge Maria Bergoglio. Sounds Italian, you see? An Argentinian who sounds Italian. Jorge Maria Bergoglio. He was born in Buenos Aires. We're talking about Pope Francis, who I really like.
me too.
He just seems like a great guy.
He does.
I really like the Pope.
Yeah. I'm not a very big fan of popes normally, but I do really like him. And quite strange to think that instead of an Italian going to Argentina to work, he's an Argentinian who's gone to work in Rome.
Yeah.
So he's like the opposite.
Yeah. What I like about him is he seems to be, for me, in my lifetime, I'm not that old, eh? Not young, but I'm not that old. The first Pope,
Well,
he's like the first Pope who really, really genuinely seems to be a man of the people.
Yeah.
He really does speak and try to understand the common man or woman. And that's what I really like about him.
it's really nice to see some hope for the Pope.
Oh,
Jorge Luis Borges. Is that how you say it? Borges?
Borges.
Borges. Famous writer, right?
Very famous in Spanish language, yeah.
Have you read any of his stuff?
I have, but I can't remember it very well because it's quite highbrow. Very kind of sophisticated, yeah. So if you're not a native Spanish speaker, it's quite difficult to understand, but I've certainly heard of him, yep.
Eva Perón, of course, another famous Argentinian, the famous stateswoman, married to Juan Perón.
What's a stateswoman?
A stateswoman or a statesman, a person who represents the state and is also a diplomat with some political power sometimes, although not necessarily. You can be a stateswoman or a statesperson without having real political power. Then you're more like a figurehead, representative of the state. Anyone else famous from Argentina?
Yes, an actor that I greatly admire. I think he's a very good actor, Ricardo Darín.
You've seen him, haven't you? You told me before we started recording. You saw him in Valencia.
Yes, by chance. I'm fairly sure it was him. I didn't get a chance to speak to him. I mean, why would he want to speak to me? But he was in a bar in Valencia, Plaza El Negrito, in Plaza Negrito. I'm fairly sure it was him. He must have been over here doing a theatre play or something like that. I'm fairly sure it was him because, as I say, I'm quite a fan. I think he's a brilliant actor. Very, very good.
Another famous Argentinian who went to live in Holland, Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. I think she's quite a controversial figure, but also very famous. And she was quite heavily criticised by the Dutch for not admitting to finding her Dutch identity. And there was a huge controversy about her over in Holland.
So that's strange, isn't it? An Argentinian woman is the Queen of the Netherlands, of Holland. Another famous Argentinian who I know has been in Valencia, apart from Ricardo Darín, is Daniel Barenboim. I haven't actually seen him in person. I would have liked to have seen him perform, but the tickets were a bit pricey for me. He's one of the greatest classical musicians, in my opinion, and many agree with me, of the 20th to 21st century.
What instrument does he play?
He plays the piano, and also he's a very famous conductor, an orchestral conductor. We don't say director in English, director, we say conductor of an orchestra. But not only that, he's also a peacemaker, a person who makes peace. And as well as being Argentinian, he's the only person in the entire world, as far as I know, who holds an Israeli and a Palestinian passport.
Wow.
As well as Argentinian and Spanish nationality.
So he's got like 4 passports at home.
Yeah. So he's famous for his work promoting peace in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. But he was born in Buenos Aires and he's originally from Argentina.
Well, we've mentioned some footballers before, Messi and Maradona. Is there much rivalry in Argentina between football teams?
Oh, no. Now, from what I've heard, they don't really care. What difference does it make between
They're all
one
happy
team?
to play each other and they're very sportsmanlike. Is that true?
Yes, and one team, another. No. We're joking, of course. Even outside Argentina here, we know that if there's one thing a porteño, somebody from Buenos Aires, might really hate, it's another porteño. It's another person from
a different
Buenos
team,
Aires.
from a different football team.
Oh, they take it very seriously. We're talking, of course, River Plate or Boca Juniors. An intense, very, very, very intense rivalry between those two teams from Buenos Aires.
I remember when I went to Buenos Aires, walking past the stadium. I was very close to the River Plate Stadium. It's really, really impressive. Although, sadly, there were no games at the time, so I did not get to see a game. But next time I go back, I would love to see a football match. It must be amazing over there in Buenos Aires.
Of course, I'm sure most of our listeners know that tango comes from Argentina. Do you know the expression, Craig, it takes two to tango?
Yes, because, for example, when you co-host a podcast, then you need 2 people to do the podcast. So the expression, you need 2 to tango, means you can't really do a co-hosted podcast by yourself. So anything where 2 people are involved or 2 people are needed, you can use the expression, it takes 2 to tango. Let's say, for example, 2 people are married and they get divorced and they argue and they break up. They split up, and you say, well, maybe it's the wife's fault, maybe it's the husband's fault, but usually it takes 2 to tango, which means you need 2 people to make an argument.
And tell me, Craig, I know you can dance a little bit. Can you dance the tango?
I tried to learn for 7 or 8 years here in Valencia with tango teachers, and I never really mastered the dance. Although when we were in Buenos Aires, it's very common at lunchtime for people to break from work and dance tango in their lunch break. And we went to a famous cafe where people danced during the day, and we danced a little tango in this cafe. But I felt very self-conscious. They were such good dancers, Reza, and I felt like an idiot. So I danced for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and spent the rest of the time drinking tea and watching people dance. But it was a really interesting place. It was a great experience.
But I guess, like me, you appreciate watching good tango dancers.
Yeah, well, it's very sexy. It's very romantic.
Very seductive, isn't it?
And difficult. It's very difficult for me as an Englishman who grew up in discotheques, dancing by myself. It's very difficult for me to lead a lady, to direct the lady and sort of gently take her forward or backwards, or it's a very complicated thing for me to do. So maybe I'll keep trying, but for now, you won't see me tangoing anytime soon.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Craig just mentioned there as an Englishman, just to remind you Argentinian listeners, I'm Irish, by the way. Yeah, I'm Irish. Craig's English. Yeah, I just mentioned that for no particular reason.
Meaning you're a much better dancer.
No.
And now, because it takes two to tango, it's your turn to practice your English, because where would we be, Reza, without our listeners' feedback? We love hearing your voices, so please send us a voice message and say hello. And if you have already sent a voice message, then say hello again. Send another. We love hearing from you. You can do that by going to speakpipe.com, speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast, or just record your voice as an MP3 and send it by email. What are our email addresses, though?
Yeah, if you want to write, try craig@inglespodcast.com or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you'd like some online courses to improve your English, go to store.mansioningles.net.
As ever, thanks to all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast in the Patreon scheme. You can see a full list of all our Patreon sponsors if you go to patreon.com/Ingles podcast. We haven't got time to mention everyone on the list, but we will mention our most recent supporters who've just joined us. A big thank you for joining Juan Jesus Vilchez Padilla and Jose Manuel Flores Gamez.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining. Remember, if you would like to join our wonderful supporters for as little as $1 per month, although we do appreciate more, you get instant access to recent transcriptions over at patreon.com/Ingles podcast. What's next week?
On next week's episode, the most difficult things about learning Spanish.
So from a giddy perspective, we'll tell you what's difficult for us, and that's in response to a listener question. So keep sending us your questions and we'll speak about them in future episodes. Until next week, thank you for listening this week. It's goodbye from me.
And hasta luego from me.
Che.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later, and by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com.